Yes, because I forgot to say Jamie's joining us again today. He's not with high schools today. Welcome back, Jamie.
Thank you very much. I was so gutted to miss yesterday's lesson.
Okay, I have
Uh,
something for you. I'll show you in just a minute.
yeah, tell me what I missed.
Here we go. As another school, Hazel
Wow.
M's class, which I forgot to write down which school. So this is, if this is your school, hello. Craigie Primary School emailed us this lovely photo of them watching the lesson. And Miss Gentle's class, working hard, creating fact files about endangered animals, which is so cool.
Very cool.
That's a really good idea for an
Yeah.
extension to today's lesson, or yesterday's lesson rather. Whitdale Primary School.
Is that what I think it is?
That's what you think it is. Jamie, you're going to have to watch the recorded version of yesterday's
I know,
lesson
I absolutely will.
because it was fantastic. We had so many friends join us.
Oh,
Furry
so
friends and human friends. And Langholm Primary School did your experiment. Well, that's pretty cool.
wow.
We'll have to find out
That's
how
so
much the temperature rose.
yeah, maybe we can have a look by the end of this lesson.
That would be really cool. And also, we had some questions sent in. So we've chosen 2 today to answer. And the rest of them we did answer as well. And so did our friends from Edinburgh Zoo. But there were so many questions that we have put them in the resource folder in the bit that says Q&A. So that all your answers, including the names of the wildcats, are in the folder. So you can go and have a look there. If we missed your question, and I really hope we didn't, there were so many. If we missed it, please let us know because we're quite happy to answer questions. But here are 2 from yesterday. First one is, when did climate change start? That's a good question. The answer is that Earth's climate has naturally changed throughout history. So, but it is a natural process as well as a human-made process. But the problem we're having just now is the speed of changes and the source of changes. So this is the bit that's caused by humans. We're speeding up climate change. Like Jasper said yesterday, the problem that we're having now is that these changes are happening too fast for some animals to adapt to them. So that's what's causing, at least that's what's causing animals a definite problem. And scientists have found recently that greenhouse gases have begun warming the Earth's oceans as early as 1830. And they found this by studying tiny marine organisms and also fossilized corals because they leave a trace of what the weather was like when they were living. The second question we had was a good one. This was hard, and it was. What effect did the Chernobyl disaster have on climate change? So we had a really good look at this. And the answer that we've come up with, a short answer, there's a longer one, is that the 1986 Chernobyl disaster released radioactive contamination into the atmosphere, including substances called iodine, caesium, strontium, and plutonium. But these are not greenhouse gases. So although they're harmful to the environment in many other ways, and they don't belong in the atmosphere, they are not the substances causing climate change. But, and I love an answer that's yes, but, the effect of climate change on the remains of the reactor site at Chernobyl is a cause for concern. Because although forest fires in the Chernobyl exclusion zone, which is, if you've had a look, is surrounded by a large forest, forest fires there are nothing new, but they are becoming more frequent and more intense due to climate change. Do you think of what was happening in Australia recently? They do have forest fires quite often, but they're becoming worse, more intense, bigger, right? So the same sort of thing is happening near the Chernobyl exclusion zone, which is the bit of Chernobyl that had the reactor problem. It's been sealed off. So these forest fires are also happening in places where there was a lot of radioactive fallout. All the stuff that went up into the air fell down onto the earth, onto the ground. And now this is causing a problem for firefighters when they go to fight these wildfires, because you don't want to come into contact with radioactive contamination. And the United Nations says that although the exclusion zone around Chernobyl has become a wildlife sanctuary of sorts because there's no people there anymore, there's more numbers of wild boar, deer, elk, wolf, bear, and beaver, but there's fewer types of animals and birds. So it has had an effect on biodiversity as well, which we know is also affected by climate change. So thank you for the challenging question. The rest
Really
of the
good
questions.
questions.
Yeah, the rest of the questions, as I said, are in the resource file. And now the last thing before we hand you over to Eve to learn all about food, and I hope you've had your breakfast because Eve's lessons always make me hungry, is a quick quiz. And then I'll show you the thing I have for you, Jamie, because I think you'll like it.
Yes.
So yesterday we learned a lot about different animals and how they are affected by climate change. The 3 questions I want you to think about. Remember, don't put your answer in the chat because you don't want to share your answer. You will need to gather your answers up, and you can email us or you can tell us on social media how you did as a class. Okay, so think about these answers. I bet you can remember quite a bit of this. Can you remember how the penguins are most affected by climate change? Jess showed us the penguins and she talked about their feathers and she talked about what climate change is doing for them as they live, right? Second question is, can you remember what a koala's favorite food is? And no, it's not chocolate chip cookies.
That was my answer.
And the third question is, can you remember how wildcats have been affected by climate change? This one was particularly good because wildcats live in Scotland naturally. So this is a good indication of what climate change is doing to our natural environment within Scotland. So how many can you remember? Let us know on social media. Your teacher can do that for you. Remember that all of our social media is at KSB Scotland, so you can tag us in, and we'd love to know how you did. And I'm going to make Jamie take the quiz as well after he watches the lesson. We'll let you know how he did as well. The last thing before we show you, before Eve gets started, is Jamie, I brought you a polar bear. It's my morning cup of tea in the polar bear mug, which I thought was a good thing.
Lovely, thank you.
Right, Eve, take it away.
Thanks ever so much, Kat and Jamie. Good morning, everybody. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here and talking to you today. And as Kat said, it's all about our food and climate change. And just before I get into that, I just want a wee word just to make sure we all know what we're doing around the polls, because I'm going to be asking some questions. I'm going to put some polls up in the chat. And you may know, if you've ever had to mark a test, or how long it can take, even if the test is only like 10 questions long, and there's still 10 answers to check. Well, there's over 350 of you in this chat at the moment. So if we're all putting your answers in the chat, that's a lot of answers to look through. And it also means, the main thing is, it means that the question disappears for some people. So we know that some of you, the polls are not appearing in the chat. So if that's you, can we ask you please, instead of answering in the chat, that you answer in your class and you share your answers together in class, and we will check back. You can check back. We obviously will give you the answers. If you can see the poll, there's a wee circle, and I've got a wee slide before I actually even start Here we go. I'm going to start showing you my slides now, so you should be able to see that first slide. So when the poll comes up, if you can see the poll, the way to answer it is to click on the circle that's beside the answer that is your answer, and then click submit, and the answers, and then the results will pop up automatically. As I say, if you can't see the poll, please just answer in class and don't put your answer in the chat. That means that the people who can see the poll can still see the poll and put their answers in, because otherwise it disappears. Thank you ever so much. Oh, and just one thing, the very first poll, you're going to be able to answer more than one answer. It's sort of a multiple choice, but you can choose more than one answer, but I will remind you of that when we get there. Okay. So there's my title slide. I hope you can all see that. And it's called Food Choices to Tackle Climate Change, starting from today. Because there are things that you will be able to do. That's the good news. And the other good news is that we eat, most of us eat every day, a few times every day. So you get lots of opportunity to do something about this. And there's good reason to. Because, here's a big figure, This is talking about all the greenhouse gases in the world, global greenhouse gases. 1/3 of them comes from our food system. So that's a lot of greenhouse gases. But as I said, there's lots of opportunity to do something about that, to take action. So today, in this session, we're going to have a look at where those gases come from in the system so that we can make good choices about what we choose to do to try and reduce that. And part of that is looking at the carbon footprint of foods. Now, if you were here on Monday, you will remember that Jamie was talking about the carbon footprint of different things, and you may remember that you can have a carbon footprint. I do, and your teacher will, and different organisations can have a carbon footprint, perhaps like your school, or even shops or hospitals, different organisations and different things. Like, for example, here we go, I've got a pen here. My pen has a carbon footprint, or my mug has a carbon footprint. And food does as well, different foodstuffs. So we'll look at the different carbon footprints of different types of food, because my carbon footprint is different to yours, and yours will be different to somebody in another school, and so forth. So different foods have different carbon footprints. And then there's going to be 3 tips. Watch out for these 3 tips as we go through the session. They'll appear through the session. Now, you may already know some good ways to reduce your carbon footprint through food, which is great. And I wonder if they'll match up with any of these. When we get to these slides, there's none in there at the minute. We'll populate that slide as we go, and you'll see the 3 tips appearing as we go. And just before, again, we get started on that, a wee check that we're understanding the names of things, because we sometimes use different names for the same thing. For example, Tom is a short way of saying the name Thomas, and Liz is a short way of saying the name Elizabeth. CO2 is a short way of saying carbon dioxide, but CO2 is the same thing as carbon dioxide. It's just another way of saying it. Here's another one. CO2E, with that little E on the end, is another way of saying greenhouse gases. Okay? And because there's more than one greenhouse gas. I know from the first day that a lot of you know the names of some of those different greenhouse gases. It does include carbon dioxide, but it also includes methane, nitrous oxide, and here's a big name, chlorofluorocarbons, and that name gets shortened to CFCs. And those are the CFCs are the gases that you find in the back of your refrigerator. They're the gases that make your refrigerator work. Okay, so just a reminder there about those names to make sure we're all understanding what they are. And here we go. We're going to start with looking at some sources of emissions from food. And there will be a poll on this, and we'll take it very slowly because we're going to ask about each of the individual things on this slide. And remember, if you can't see the poll, then just answer in class, and please don't put your answers in the chat. But if you can see the poll, click on the circle. And this is a multiple choice. You can choose as many of the answers as you think. But make sure it's the majority of the class. So if most of you think yes, then you select it. So the first one here is land use change. Is land use change a source of emissions, of greenhouse gas emissions in relation to food? Well, what I mean by, and now the poll has just popped up, you should see, if you see it on your screen, then that's what you use. If you can't see it, it's just in class. So land use change is when we chop down trees and churn up the soil so that it's not the trees and not the natural vegetation, it's not the forests that are there, but the plants that we want to grow there instead, maybe food for us or food for animals. And places where that's happening, because it's probably not down the road from you, places where it is happening in the world are places like Indonesia, where the forests are being cut down to grow something called palm oil. And that's a product that is mostly found in quite highly processed foods like biscuits or crackers or snack bars, those sorts of things. In Africa, It's also happening. The cocoa industry is chopping down trees, unfortunately, to grow chocolate, because a lot of people like to grow chocolate, to eat chocolate, sorry. And also in Brazil, it's also happening. They're chopping the trees down there to grow a product called soy. And again, that's not usually for people to eat. It's grown as a feed for animals. So land use change. If you think that land use change is a source of greenhouse gases from our food system, then you would make a vote in your class just now and select land use change in the poll, or as I say, if you can't see the poll, just have that conversation in class and decide between you. Is land use change a source of greenhouse gases? Okay, and moving on to the next picture. Remember I was talking about feed for animals? Well, some of those animals that we grow feed for are cows. But I'm not just talking about cows now, I'm talking about a group of animals called ruminant animals. And that includes cows and sheep. It also includes giraffes and camels. So there's quite a few different animals called ruminant. And what ruminant means is to do with how they digest their food. You and I have one stomach, okay? Ruminant animals also have one stomach. The difference is in the compartments in our stomachs. You and I have one stomach and one compartment. It's like a bag, just a bag, a normal bag. Ruminant animals have a stomach that is divided into not just one compartment, not even two, not three, but 4 different compartments. And that's a lot to do with some of their food is very difficult to digest. So they need to go through 4 different processes to help them digest their food. And you might remember from yesterday, the koalas also had a difficult to digest food, and it made them very sleepy, but they're not ruminants. They digest their food rather differently. So when these ruminant animals chew their food, they eat it very, very quickly, and then it goes into the biggest part of the stomach called the rumen, and it's stored there for quite a long time, and it also ferments there. And that's the first process of breaking it down. And they still need to break it down even more, so those animals regurgitate from that first compartment and chew it again. And that is called chewing the cud. And when that comes back up, when they regurgitate the food, some of the gases that are in that first part also come up as burps. And that is methane and also carbon dioxide that comes back up. So are ruminant animals a source of emissions, greenhouse gas emissions? Have a think about that. What do you think? If you think yes, if most of you think yes they are, then you would tick the circle beside ruminant animals. Or if you can't see the poll, you just discuss it in class and decide in between you. Now the next one, fertilizer and machinery. We need to use fertilizer on the land to help grow healthy crops. When we put fertilizer on the ground, and that could be manure from animals, or it could be man-made fertilizer, when we put that on, it also gives off a gas called nitrous oxide. And when we use machinery, it's often fueled by things like petrol, which comes from fossil fuels. So do we think that fertilizers and farm machinery are a source of greenhouse gases? Vote in your class and tick it on the box if you think so. Next picture. Processing. A lot of our food goes through processing, things like washing the food to get some of the mud off it if it's pulled out of the ground, maybe chopping it up and putting it into packages, that kind of thing. So there can be lots of processes that it goes through. And sometimes, of course, if you're getting something that's more than one ingredient, it goes through cooking and mixing and those sorts of things before it goes into packaging. So processing side of things, it uses machinery. Do we think that that is also a source of greenhouse gas emissions? I'm going to vote just now on processing. Yes or no, a source of greenhouse gas emissions? What about this next picture? There's three things here, actually. You can see in the picture, there's food, but it's in packaging, isn't it? So we would need to get the resources for the packaging. We need to create the packaging. There'll be machines used for creating the packaging. And then some food needs to be kept cool to keep it safe for us to eat. So there's chilling, there's refrigeration that needs to happen. And there's energy that needs to happen for that. And remember, there was something I mentioned right at the very beginning about refrigeration and greenhouse gases. Remember that one, that long name? And then if we're buying from a shop, as a lot of us do, there's the lighting and the heating in the shop so we can see where we're going and to keep the people who work there warm. So is that a source of greenhouse gases? You can vote now on packaging, chilling and retailing. And then the last one, and if you can see the poll, you may need to scroll down to find this last option, which is food waste. Sometimes we don't finish our food and there's a bit of food left on the plate, and that's food that we could have eaten, but also there are things that's food waste that we wouldn't eat anyway, things like eggshells and banana skins. And all of that, we're considering all of that as food waste. So what happens when food is wasted and pops in and you put it maybe in the bin or wherever you put it? What happens to it when it rots down? Does rotting food give off greenhouse gases? There's a question. If you think that it does, then you would say yes, food waste is a source of greenhouse gas emissions. Okay, so I'm going to have a look now at some of the results. If I can see them, I've muted my chat so that it doesn't pop up on your screens. But it looks like all of those options have been selected. And if you said yes to all of those options, you are right, because they are all sources of greenhouse gas emissions. So there's a lot of places that along the food supply chain where our food emits greenhouse gases. And I mentioned their supply chain, so let's have a look at that, because all of those things, if we lay them end to end from right at the beginning, when we change the land to what happens on the farm, and then this extra section here about animal feed, because if we're growing things, there is a whole section of emissions that are to do with what we need to grow to feed livestock. And then there's processing, as I mentioned, transporting, which wasn't in there, but we know about the emissions from transport, retail, and then finally packaging. And there's emissions all the way along that whole food chain. That's the supply chain. And the waste bit, which isn't in there, is the bit that's to do with us, the consumer. So another poll should pop up on these, because it's time for you to use that thinking and that listening that we've been doing. I need you to think about that supply chain and decide which of these two foods you think is lowest in carbon. Is it A, the carrots, or B, the beef that comes from the cow? And we're thinking about the same amount, the same weight of ingredients. So a kilogram of carrots and a kilogram of beef. Which is lowest? We're looking for the lowest. If you can see the poll, use the poll. If you can't see the poll, it's answers in class. Which has the lowest? Let's have a look. Oh my goodness, 90% of you are saying carrots are the lowest. And if you've said A, carrots, so I'm just moving my cursor here, and I've lost it on the white screen. Here it is. You are correct. It's the carrots. And here's the actual figures. And you see that CO2e on the end? We're thinking about all the greenhouse gases. And beef has almost 60 kilograms of greenhouse gases that are given off. And root vegetables like carrots, not even one. There's a huge difference between them. Okay, and have a think to yourselves about in class, and this is the thing for you to think about and discuss in class. Why is it lower in carbon? That's a question for after. We've got a couple more of these A or B's. So low or high, here's the next one, low or high, chicken or beef. It's two different types of meat this time. Which is the lower one? Which one is the lower? Which do you think is lower? Oh my goodness me. At the moment we've got everybody is saying chicken. Oh no, there's some answers to beef as well. But, oh, 97%. Thank you so much for everybody answering here. 96%, which is almost everybody, saying chicken. Let's have a look. Is it chicken? It is. Well done. Have a think about why. What's the reason? And here are the answers. Remember that the beef, it's the same beef, was almost 60 kilograms of CO2e. Oops, I've gone too far. And the chicken was just about 10. So chicken is still more than the vegetables, but not as much as the beef. Why is that? That's a question for after you can discuss or maybe find out, or you can ask us. Now, you probably don't eat or don't cook with carrots and chicken and beef every day, but you may well have a snack every day. So this one is maybe a bit more tricky, but we have had some of the answers in here. A is a cereal bar from a shop, and B is basically a handful of dried fruit and nuts. So that's a bit more tricky. Which do you think is lowest? Remember, we're going low, 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 low. Which is lowest in carbon? Oh, this is interesting. Okay, most of you at the moment are saying it's the dried fruit and nuts. And the responses are coming in, well done. And I hope you're having good conversations in your class as well. Wow, you're doing really well here. 94% dried fruit and nuts is your answer. Let's check these answers. You're right. It's the dried fruit and nut. That is the lower carbon. Let's have a look at the actual amounts. This granola bar, this shop bought bar, has almost 30 kilograms of CO2e, but the fruit and nuts doesn't even have 1 kilogram of CO2e. So again, there's a big difference between them. Why? Can you remember what I was talking about land use change? And palm oil, and lots of processed things have palm oil in. Maybe have a think about that. So on to our first tip of the day. Tip number 1, here's a clue. Oh, and there's the answer, it's popped up at the same time. We've got a picture there of vegetables, some carrots and raspberries, and the tip is to eat more of the foods that are lower carbon foods. So that's your first tip. And following on from thinking about snacks, let's think a bit more about snacks, because that's something you probably have more choice about in a day. So we've got some more questions here, but you've got more answers. What's in a snack? And you've got 3 different things to choose from, and it's the same 3 options to choose from each of the questions this time. So which of these snacks, a banana, a homemade flapjack, that's one I made the other day, or a shop bought bar, that's A, B, or C, the banana, the homemade flapjack, or the shop bar, which of those has the fewest number of ingredients? So it's the number of different ingredients. Which has the fewest? This should be quite easy for you. How many ingredients in a banana? How many in a flapjack? How many in a shop bar? Which has the fewest number? Vote now in your class. And if you can't see the poll, please just remember to talk about it in class so that the people who can use the poll keep seeing it. If you put your answer into the chat, it means that it disappears.
Just to make sure you get all your lovely lesson in, I just remind you you've got about 10 minutes left.
Thank you so much. Okay, so yes, excellent. We've got 98% say the banana, and you are right. It's banana. Next question, lowest carbon. Oh my goodness. So we're going to go very quickly on this. A, B, or C. It's the same lot of options. Which has the lowest carbon? Next poll. A, B, or C. Lowest carbon. That should be there for you now. The banana, the flapjack, or the cereal bar. And the lowest carbon, again, it's per kilogram of the ingredient, not per banana. It's per kilogram. Which one has the lowest carbon? If you don't know, it's okay. Maybe take a guess and we'll find out. And it's something you can explore later. There's a bit of a split, more of a split here. And here is the answer. Banana! Again, the lowest carbon. Next question and next poll, please. Because it's not just about carbon, we need to be able to afford these things. So which has the lowest price? And just to let you know, when I went and bought these bars, to take a photograph, I bought the one that was the least expensive that I could find. Okay? So A, B, and C, which one is the lowest price? Oh, there is a big split here now. But still, actually, most people saying banana, but homemade flapjack's doing very well as well. Here's the answers. It's actually banana and flapjack together. They came in at the same price, but they were both cheaper than the shop bought bar. And I'm going to show you now all the answers, the actual figures for all of these. So there's the prices and the amount of carbon for each of the three options. And there's a picture there of the list of ingredients for the shop bar. And so I don't know if you can see my cursor here. In the list, you can see palm oil and you can see chocolate. And you remember both of those things are associated with land use change and forests being chopped down. So unfortunately, they have a higher carbon footprint. So now you might not want to eat bananas all the time, because remember, bananas were the lowest carbon. You might not even like bananas, although they are Scotland's most popular fruit. If you want to change it up a bit and have something a bit different to eat sometimes, but you don't want to have high carbon, then perhaps you could have a go at making your snack. And we've got flapjack here as an option. So here's a wee recipe, and this is also in the resources. So if you want to have a go at making one for your One Planet picnic on Friday, you can do that. Why I put here, there's the basic ingredients, and then you can add yummy things. This is why I called it Flavour Friends, because you choose what you want to add. If you like things spicy, you can maybe add a bit of chili, or if you like things fruity, you can add some dried fruit. You can put whatever you like in, and it becomes the thing that you like, and you can change it up from different weeks, so it has different flavours. And remember, it won't have packaging, so you shouldn't just pop them in your pocket or in your school bag, because they'll get oozy and maybe a bit broken. You'll need a wee pot to put them in to bring them to school. So, second tip, here's a clue. Children cooking something, what do we think that tip is? Learn to cook with fresh ingredients, and then you can make your own low carbon things to eat. What was tip number 1 again? Fruit and vegetables, eating more of the low carbon foods. So let's move on now to the last section. And this is an experiment that we won't do live because it actually takes a bit of time to see the results come through. But I'm going to talk you through it really quickly. You'll need these ingredients. The lid for the bottle is important, and ingredients to make compost. These are compost ingredients. Browns, that's kind of dry twigs and cardboard, those sorts of things. Greens, which are things like grasses. And although grass is green, that's not why it's called greens. Greens are things with moisture in them, like apple cores, like the carrot shavings there, or a bit of red cabbage. So they've got moisture in them. And what you do is to chop up all your ingredients really small, put twice the amount of browns to greens in the bottle and draw a line around the top of the ingredients. Add a spoonful of soil. Put your lid on, remember, and I sealed mine with sellotape and put the date on. And now this is when your thinking begins. What do you think will happen? Put it on a sunny windowsill. What do you think will happen? And observe the changes. Here's some questions. What do you expect is going to happen? And what will you be able to see happening? Because some changes may happen that you won't be able to see. When will it happen? And if there are changes happening that you won't be able to see, because remember, gases aren't always visible. Sometimes they're invisible. You can't see them. So how will you check what's happening? I've got this experiment here that I did, and there's a date label on there. I don't know if you can see. I started it on the 13th of August. I'm going to open it just now. And let's see. Actually, I don't know if you can see there. There's the line, first of all. Bit of observation. There's the line on the bottle here where the ingredients were, but the ingredients aren't there anymore. They're way down here. I haven't opened this bottle, so where have all these ingredients gone? What's happened? Why aren't the ingredients up here anymore? What's been going on there? The other thing, when I pick up this bottle and I try to squeeze it, it's really hard. When I put those ingredients in, it was quite squashy. I could squash the bottle quite easily, but I can't do that anymore. What's going on? We're going to open the bottle. Well, I'm going to open the bottle just now, take the sellotape off, and see if there are any changes that we can use other senses. So we can't use our eye. Well, we can use our eyes for those things that I've just mentioned, but our other senses are nose and ears. I can use my nose, you can use your ears and see if there's anything we can hear when I open this bottle. So really quiet just now. I don't know if this is going to be audible on the microphone. So really, really quiet and see if there's anything we can hear. Oh, ooh, okay. I don't know if you heard that. I hope you did, but I certainly heard a hissing noise. Well, where did that come from? What's causing the hiss? That's not a bottle of pop. And I can tell you there's a bit of a smell going on, and that smells a bit like methane. So I'm going to shake this up because my compost, if it's making methane, it's not good compost. And I need to get air in there so that it becomes good compost again. I'll get my cursor here if I can find it. Here we go. What do I do with my compost? I'm going to put it on my soil in my garden to feed those worms and all that life underground. And then it helps the ground to store carbon because soil is a good store of carbon if we let it lie. And that will help to grow some healthy plants for me next year. Now there's one more little activity here. There's some questions here and there's a question sheet. These questions are on a sheet, a resource sheet for your teacher. We've got enough time just to have a look at this video in case you're not able to see this video. Here we go. And you should be able to hear this as well. So those questions were, how many different things can you see in this film that make climate change? And then when you get to the end, you kind of have to think back about what did the customers do to make the film end that way? And then how else might you want the film to end? Okay, so I'm just going to play it. We're not going to answer those just afterwards. This is just so that everybody can see the film, just in case you don't have access in school. Here we go.
My sweet baby, you mean everything to me. I love
Can we get strawberries? No, honey. Please? Okay.
Okay, so that's the wee film. And there's those questions again to remind you that you can answer perhaps in discussion this afternoon, which brings us to our tip number 3. And there's a clue. And the tip is reduce food waste. When it rots down, it releases methane. I smelt it from my little experiment there. Tip number 2, what was that again? Remember? Learning to cook with low carbon ingredients, with fresh ingredients, so you can make low carbon options, and eating more of the low carbon foods. So there's your 3 tips, 1, 2, 3, which you can all start doing from today to reduce your carbon footprint from food choices. So that's the end of my presentation today. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for joining in, for all your excellent voting. I'm going to hand back to Kat now. Thanks ever so much and cheerio.
Thank you, Eve. Before we say goodbye to everyone, I wanted to remind you that you'll be building your climate action plan throughout this whole week. And if you notice in today's summary, your task today to think about for your action plan is to think about how you're going to measure and monitor the actions that you choose to put on your action plan. So like Eve's experiment when she was smelling, which was funny, and observing what happened to the things in her bottle and thinking about what was happening, how are you going to make sure that the things that you choose to put on your climate action plan are going to be effective? Or how are you going to know if you've been effective? And the other thing to remind you about is for your One Planet picnic on Friday. I'm sure Eve has just given you lots of ideas. Now I'm craving flapjacks. So please let us know what your plans are if you're going to have a picnic, and let us know what you choose to cook, because we'd love to hear all of that stuff. And if you have any questions, remember to send them to us in an email or on social media, and we will do our best to answer them. If we can answer a question about Chernobyl, we can probably answer a question about just about anything. So have a go. Thank you so much, Jamie. Did you have anything to add?
No, that was great. Thank you so much, Kat.
Oh, Jamie, they're asking for your balloon.
I was going to say, I know
look,
people
please?
are leaving, so I don't know whether it's best to do the balloon for tomorrow.
That's all right. Do it both times. Do it. Yeah, it'll be in the recording, right. So it's fine.
So I've got my balloons right here from Monday, all the way back from Monday. Remember, this was my control one, so this has only got the vinegar in it. This has got the bicarb added to it, and you can see the balloon is looking a little bit worse for wear, but it's still, there's definitely still a good amount of gas in there. Hopefully you can all remember what that gas is. Eve's been talking about it a lot today. What I've noticed, and I've recorded my results every morning and night from the thermometers, and it's a little tricky to see, but what I found, let me just get my notes. So what I found is that the temperature in both of them went down yesterday, but the one with the carbon dioxide in it stayed a tiny little bit higher than my control experiment. And then this morning, I noticed that the temperatures on both had gone up, but again, the one with the carbon dioxide in it is still slightly higher than my control. So it's made me think, why has it gone up and then why has it gone down and then gone up? And the reason is, I think, is because the temperature just in the room that I'm in was colder yesterday than it is today. But the temperature in there, even though it's the same as the room, it's still a little bit higher compared to the control. And I think that's because of the gas. Maybe Langholm Primary can let us know what they find from their experiment and anyone else who's done it, because I'd love to know if they're similar results or if they're quite different. I would love to hear.
That's brilliant, Jamie. It's a really interesting result. And I've seen a couple of schools on Twitter that have done it as well as Langholm Primary. So we'll have to find out if they get the same results as you and if they have the same thoughts as to why. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. It's been fantastic to see you, all of you. Well, to see you in the chat, all of you. And I look forward to hearing what you think of today's lesson and what you've been up to by email or social media. And let us know how you get on with the quiz. We're going to make sure that Jamie takes the quiz and we'll let you know he does as well. All right. Yeah, you thought I was kidding, Jamie, but I'm not. See you tomorrow for another lesson.
Much, folks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. See you later.